Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. We're going to paint another landscape today. Try to do it 90 minutes to 2 hours, somewhere in there. Just like if we were going out and making a quick composition, a plein air composition that we would take back into the studio and then refine into a larger painting. And I do this type of stuff all the time. I do it that way, and then I come up with ideas, and then I also study the masters, something that is very important. Today, kind of a fun one. What I'll just look down here, I'll show you. This is a photo that I bought from Adobe Stock Photos. I like to buy the photos, from different photographers and stuff. They're an artist as well. They compose a lot of stuff for me. But and I like this. This course has a dam in it and has a couple of people walking here in the distance. Light is actually coming from the backside this way. So we're looking at some of the shadow of obviously some of the big trees and stuff here. I like this little bit of light coming through here with the tall grass and stuff here. And I just love the colors, the fall colors of it. And but I thought this was a little bit big for it, and it needed a little more interest. So I decided I would take another photo that I had, and I take them into Photoshop and I blend them together. And there's a little dam here. I took that out, extended the lake, extended the visual journey, which instead of taking the visual journey into the painting, we'll take it sideways this way this time back here by creating, what landscape painters do is we create those descending triangles that just really help your journey. So we'll have a big triangle here and descending ones here. You need at least three. Those of you that have studied perspective, you need at least three to get a good landscape perspective. And so we have more than that. We have at least 4 to 5 overlapping ones, depending on how we're going to paint it. Darken the sky down just a little bit so that it would contrast the mountains here a little bit more. Now the only problem that I have here is light is coming from the backside this way onto the mountains, and it's coming, like I said, this way on this, so I'm going to have to change. This is actually going to have to become light. I'm just using them for inspiration anyway. It's not something I'm going to be copying, so we'll have a bit of fun with it, changing the photo up and around. I love to do this, and like I said, I love to study the masters. I painted a couple years ago into the landscape class. I've done a lot of Louis Ashton Knight, but there was another one that's Peter Morkmudstead that I really enjoyed his work, and I've copied several of his paintings to learn his brush technique, his brush calligraphy, his color usage. One of them that I did for the landscape course was this beautiful little lake in a fall scene. I love to work the greens and the fall colors, that combination of those. And I think we'll kind of do a little bit of that today. Put some of those fall colors and stuff that you see in, that we learned from Peter Morkmudstead, and he was, a great painter. And like I've always said, I'm a firm believer that if you're an artist, you need to study the classics, you need to study the masters, study those that came before you, learn some of those techniques. That's how we learn. You just don't go jump into something and decide what you're going to do. How do I know to put stuff together? Well, it's because I read the masters and what their thought processes were to put stuff together, and that generates ideas for you. That's how you do it. I'm a big advocate of studying artists and learning their concepts, learning their ways, and then it's just so difficult to sit down and just say I'm going to paint something. So we're going to come in here, same thing that I've done before. This is 11 by 14, 11 inches by 14 inch board. I put down some of the white canvas prep medium that I had there, and I even left it a little bit rough this time. And then I took a quick sketch with my big pencil here of something that I want to do with these mountains. I put my photo over there, my full-size photo over there. Like I said, it's there just for reference, kind of like a little security blanket. Since I'm not outside looking at something in the distance, having something to look at, I'll have that there to glance to as I build this painting. But we're going to be changing some of the light source and changing a few other things up as we go. So it's kind of fun. Photoshop is kind of a way. You also see I've taken down these trees here. They're not quite as high and made them more into that nice triangle shape, so we get that nice visual journey. Let's start out with our sky. This is a beautiful sky in that it's going to have some the phthalo blue in here, and then some of the ultramarine blue, and I like to mix those into the sky. Phthalo blue, so powerful here. Oh, for my colors, just to reiterate what we've been doing in this, the same colors that we've been using everywhere in the landscape challenges and stuff. This is Hansa yellow, Indian yellow, the yellow oxide, naphtha red light, burnt sienna, burnt sienna, burnt umber, phthalo green blue, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, red violet, black and white. And this phthalo blue is really beautiful blue up for the top up there. We'll put a bit of the ultramarine blue, and you can see how violet that makes that right away. Now, up here, this is going to be about a 7 or so, which means we should, if we're going to get up to the top, we'll get it to about a 6 or so. But one of the things you have to remember, if you're going to paint a snow-capped mountain, like up here, ours will be up on this side, because the light will come this way, this will be more of a shadow. We might have a little bit, if this peak sits up a little bit higher, depending on how long we make these shadows, this peak will get a hit here. So we might shorten these shadows just a bit and make a hit here up there. But you want that blue, you want this white to come off the blue, so you gotta figure that into your sky here as well. But I'm going to start out here about a 7 and just go right across the board here, and just deposit that. Of course, you know me, I'll be changing this quite a bit, so let's get a bit more violet, so more ultramarine blue as we go down. A lot of times I'm reversing that. I go phthalo blue up along the skyline. So this would be, our horizon line would be right about down in here. Our skyline is this line that's right here. So usually as I get down towards that, down towards the skyline, I'm getting a bit more of the phthalo blue, and I like ultramarine blue up into the deep violets. But I'm going to change it up a little bit today. And then I'll lighten that up again, and then we'll start to bring it all together. So I'm going to lighten this up with some more white right over here. And but I've got to watch this now. These blues will dry down quite a bit. Let's thin it with a little water as well. They will dry down quite a bit. I'm just going to go down kind of roughly right into my mountains, because I haven't decided yet when I'm here is if I'm going to put a cloud or so here. Depends on how my visual journey comes out. You know, I do love painting clouds, and I teach courses just on beautiful clouds and the different techniques, of the Dutch techniques for painting clouds to the Impressionist technique, and every artist had their own little way of painting clouds. And it's just, I love the Western painters, how they do clouds. There's some that are just fantastic. If we're going to create that visual journey, we'll make it a little bit more atmospheric, which means as we get along the atmosphere, as we go down towards the horizon line, this actually, you're looking through more water vapor, and so the sky becomes lighter. Right back down along the edge. I see that out there every day. I walk the prairie out here in Nebraska, take the dogs out running, and you get to see these beautiful, how the sky just changes. And so I'll get a little lighter, and we'll go right up to there. That'll make a nice light kind of sky. So you can see I've already changed that just a little bit, but you look at that camera, like I said, I have that camera 8 feet away, and I look at that monitor that's there, and that one that's there, and that one's there, and one that's right here. They give me all different kinds of looks, since I'm not standing up and stepping back for you. Here I like to have the monitors there to look at. Normally I have my big painting easels back up over there on the other side of the studio, and I get up constantly, and sometimes I'm stepping back 20 feet depending on the size of the painting that I'm doing. Okay, so we've blocked that in. let's continue with some of the fun blocking in of stuff here. Let's come down and set a real kind of a tan color down here, warm yellow tan. Let's take some of our yellow oxide, a little burnt sienna, and a tiny bit of our green here. And that just makes a beautiful tan. Prairie color that I paint all the time. Here that I see all the time. So that'll make a beautiful, and then it's, yeah, somewhere right around in there. I love the burnt sienna and this green. I just love those two together. And this was, in the photo, it's a little bit more yellow than what I have, but it's pretty darn close. It's gonna drop down and stuff, and we're gonna do a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, I'll probably use my scraper on here in just a little bit for putting some of that on, but we're just going to block in here real quick. And like I love some of these colors to come off, and love to use different types of calligraphy. I'm using a 3/4 inch long handled fusion brush right now, and let's put that in, and let's get this back up a little higher over onto this side, right just a little bit there. That'll work. I'm going to change some of this a little bit as I get going there. So I'm a little bit more green, not quite as yellow, and I can certainly, you know, a good way to do that is let that happen. Don't try and just come back and streak in some more yellows, stuff to it. So start modeling it up right now. And of course, it all changes immediately when you go grab that scraper. That scraper's just an amazing thing. So we'll do that. Let's take rinse that color out just a bit here. And let's take some of our blues here. Usually your water is always just a touch darker than your sky. And so I don't always just take my sky, you know. And when the quick and easy landscape paintings and stuff that, you know, I started out doing, you know, years ago back in the 70s, we would take the sky right down into the water. We'd take reflection right down in the water. And then you start studying the masters, and you know, water is always a reflect. Of course, what is it that makes water? It's the sky. And water, though, is a nice reflection of the sky, but it's always a little bit darker. And you could even see that in that photo there. It's just a little darker here. But I'll just push some colors into that for right now. Up into the very front, you might as well not just waste paint, because it's going to get a nice reflection. And you can see it here, talking about reflections and everything being darker. Look how much darker the color of that reflection is from what's happening here. Of course, it's reflecting mostly along here, but you still get that first light that's right up there. And even that first light is not as light as what it does there. So we're going to take some of our burnt siennas, a little bit of our greens, and a little bit of our blues here. We'll kind of model those all here. We don't want to mix them. And I'm just going to pull down. Well, actually, first I'll just kind of block in a bit, come across, and we'll just drop in some of the little colors. This is all going to change. This is blocking in, so we'll round this over just a bit here. And I'll change some of this. I'm going to drop some of this forward here. Just block in some of that look. I just want to be very casual with it and not too precise yet. Let's just, I'm not going to put any other colors in it. None of the beautiful tree colors or anything like that. I'm just going to do that. Let's walk this along the shoreline a bit. Here, just a touch. All of that will change, but that gives you your first look at what's going to happen there with the water. Let's get some of this down here. Some of our yellows, our two yellow, the Indian yellow, and the nice yellow oxide and Indian yellow. We're going to need to get some of our yellows more towards the those yellow oranges and stuff here as well. Let's just block in some of this. Here, down, take it down in size here, just where these trees and stuff might be. Yeah, some highs and lows, so it's not like a perfect visual triangle here, but I did lower it down quite a bit. I do want to see some of that mountain. And let's get some green. A little bit of our green. Beautiful pine greens can be made from black and your Hansa yellow, or black and a little yellow oxide. Those make those beautiful pine colored greens. We'll just block in a bit here. Blocking in just lets you see the tones and stuff. And if I wanted to get really a lot of depth and stuff with this, we'd be adding the atmosphere and stuff back here to this. So we would, if you want, you would take that green, those yellows, add some of your sky color back here. So that diminishes back here. You can do a little bit of that through this area. We don't quite know how any of this is going to go yet, but this is a real quick look. That's what I like. It's just a real quick look to the painting. And so that works pretty well. Let's get some of this. So we're going to take a bit of our burnt sienna, a bit of our pine here, some of our burnt umber and burnt sienna and pine. We'll put a little blue and white into that. Nice atmospheric kind of colors that are going to come. Now this is a little bit more blue, but you got to look at what this appears a little more blue. What would be the undertone, and realize it's going to take a lot of different things here. Let's just grab some of the idea. Now I want to make that just a bit more atmospheric, so a bit more blue. And since I was using ultramarine blue along the horizon, it's ultramarine blue I add. And it's going to be so funny how light that looks here, but then how much darker it looks up here. But let's grab just a little bit of this idea for a few places to hit where trees and stuff are going to be. Bring these together kind of right in there. A little bit more atmospheric here. Bit more. Let's drop some back here and some in the very back there. Not quite sure. I thought, well, maybe I'll put something else in there, like another little mountain or something. And if you all just take any kind of light color, push it back in together there like that, with light with the blue in it there. We'll make it very atmospheric, and we'll decide a little bit later here what's all that gonna be back there. But now with my white here, you can see the white, how that's gonna work right up against the blue sky, and that's gonna work pretty well. You know, I might want to have a little more ultramarine into that sky here as I get going. Let's go in and let's block in our warm light here. So it's going to be white with a bit of the yellow. Remember we show, and you could even have a touch of that orange in it. Remember we did that on Mount Hood. We warm, and so you know when you put white up here next to that one right there, see it's not white. It's not a white. It's into that light that's hitting there. That's got a little atmosphere actually hitting into it. What we really want is this light warm color that's right over here. See, it's got just a little bit of yellow in that. It's not a pure white color, see? It's got a little bit of that yellow-orange. I have a little orange into that as well. So let's take this and let's just come in here and say on this one, this is going to be our light. Our light is actually going to hit this way, so we're going to bring the same light source. So here, I'll just use the idea of the mountains here for ideas for, you know, how far the trees go up and stuff like that. But we'll have a light hit right up here onto this one, and maybe up onto this side here. That'll go down, and then we're going to pick up the cool colors. Then we might raise this one up just a bit so we can get that little light hit on that side. That'd be kind of pretty if the two light hits hit up there. Now I think I'm going to go to a smaller long handle fusion here as I continue blocking this in. And I'm going to cool down the other side, almost the sky, almost like a violet. There's a lot of different ways. I like the violet, burnt sienna, and blue. Those are beautiful colors to put in. The shadowy tones, which we have to look at for here, is that particular tone here. So I'm a little lighter, but that's what I'm looking for into the mountain, and that's not a bad one. I'm a little lighter, which is good because it will dry a little darker, and we can change it a bit. So let's just put in a bit of the shadow bit there onto that side there, just quickly, nothing perfect. And we imagine the light hits through there, so the shadow side is going to hit this way here, and bring some of that up here and right down into those, just an idea or so. Another little crevice in the mountain here, like that, okay. And let's lighten it up, atmospheric all that up a bit more, so it becomes more of the atmosphere. We'll come to the back, one back here, so it'll set back a bit. We'll add a heck of a lot more to this. This is our first look. And let's just push another little, very lost one right back there. Back like that. And we'll bring, of course, little snow lines, little trees, all that kind of good stuff that comes down. It's a blocked in, it's your first look at something like that. So then you step back, and we'll look at that camera there, okay? And you step back and you look at it and you say, okay, do I have a pretty good effect? And I think our effect is okay to continue on and start refining and start adding the brush calligraphy and stuff like that to the painting. I think that's is a nice, real quick little effect. So let's go with it. All right, so I'm going to take some, and you can start anywhere. You could work anywhere. You know, you're the artist here. You know, there's some techniques where, some Dutch techniques where, yeah, you work here, you work this plane, you work this plane, because you're working in layers. They're more indirect painting, which means they're working in layers, glazing layers as well. And we're painting this direct. We're painting this alla prima, basically. And so we can do anything we want, really, with it. I'm going to pick out a few structures. Like there's a nice, snow structure coming down here, and I'll add the shadow and stuff to it in just a minute. But I'll drag that brush down so I get that look of that fracturing of the paint, which you saw me do over on the Colorado River, and that gives you that fracturing look that you want to have into your mountains there. So I use the paint as dry and stiff as possible. Let's put a little more atmosphere into this. And if I'm gonna do something like that, I'm just gonna break this up like this and pick out a few areas just to move that and break those lines, break those colors down here like that. And let's just break up some of that crevice look there. So light's coming this way. We might pick up another little light hit off of an angle there, off of this one. So let's do that. Step back on the brush. Keep the tip a little soft. Let's get a little more paint helps, Dave. And let's just push a little bit of that in there. Maybe a bit of a light hit coming down the angles there like that, and you break up like that, and it starts to look like a mountain even before we add any of the other, shadow tones to it. So, part of this too is how much do you want to do to your mountain? Like this, sometimes you can get your mountains, way too busy for the painting here too. So we might want to really work this before we decide just how much more stuff we want to add, up in there. But I do like some of those trees. Should fracture some of this up a bit more. And see, I love the look of this fracturing to help set. And so I do it first with snow, and then I'll do it with the tree color. Fracture some of that. Just gives you that nice, broken line interest. But it is a lot of interest there too. So, you can come back with some of your light color and just lightly, if you just lightly with the tip of the brush go over that, that softens and recedes the power, the impact of that particular fracturing of that color. So this is what a technique that is created by the Dutch called scumbeling. and taking a light color over something like that to reduce the visual impact of the two colors. So you scumble. It's called scumble, but the paint has to be a light color. Scumbling is a light color. You can do a dark color, but for them it was a light color, and it has to be very dry. The paint itself has to be very dry. It can't be wet. Let's lighten up. Let's get a little more white into our yellow here. And let's hit a little more visual impact of that light coming down. Now we're not going to put as much in this as we did in the Mount Hood, but we will put some stuff in here and make it a little different there. So a little bit more light right there. Boy, those mountains are really pointed. They tend to get a little pointy in Montana, just a bit. And we'll drop some down here on this edge. We'll push just a bit, a light little bit right back here to say we did it. Hit the edges there a bit. Just a touch. You don't want to get it too much. You'll bring it forward. We want to leave these kind of atmospheric. So you lightly drag over it, scumbling over the surface there. And that, you can see it starts to give you a little bit of visual interest. But you can scumble also with the dark. And I scumble with the dark and stuff all the time, but it's the traditional Dutch definition of it was they'd use it as a light color and stuff over their painting. All right, let's take a bit of our other color here, the sky and some of our other mountain color, and we'll push that over that right in there. Like I say, I'm working on the mountains here a little bit, and I want to break up some of this light with a touch or two of it, and just a touch or two of it there, just to break up that color just a bit. And we'll put some of that light right back in here, reduce that light dark bit of it. That will make that a little bit more atmospheric back there and recede that back part of that mountain there too. We could probably put a little bit more light right up there without getting too close. You could see you could work this mountain, so those mountains are absolutely gorgeous, and you'll probably take away from all of the front of your painting there. Now there is like all kinds of little tree lines and stuff like that up there. Let's take some of our greens again. This is dried on my palette here. Some of our greens and yellows, bit of our blue and atmosphere into that. Okay, I love that atmosphere. It's very important. And let's model that into the brush a bit. Tap that in here. And we could use like the little corner of this brush to add a bit more of that, the broken look of the trees up here if you want. Now mine's just a touch green. It could be a little bit more blue into it, or you can do it another layer. It all depends on how much time you have. You know, everything is all dependent upon how much time you want to put in. I just want to show you some of the techniques I'll use, and I'll let these be a little rougher here for just a moment, and we'll go back and scumble over them and put them into position. Here, let's just add a few little more marks of trees and stuff going up the sides of those mountains. Then I'll go back, starting to dry up, but I'll add just a tiny bit of water, not too much because we want to keep it dry, right? And we'll just lightly scumble over that. Don't blend it. And that see that little bit of water hit and drug on that, and that starts to blend, and we don't want to do that. You want the scumble. The scumble allows it to save or preserve some of these. That's just a little wet. It allows you to save. That's better right there. And you hear that scrubbing. And see how I slowly scrub over it. The scumble sets it back, but it doesn't destroy the fracturing of those colors. It starts to bring them closer together, and that's where you start to get some of that interest and stuff like that to it. So sorry about that. Yes, I have my little lab right here, and I turned around and put my foot right on her foot. She's letting me know. Sorry about that, babe. So let's scumble down into some of these other little, some blues, some of the slightly darker snow. Let's just push some of that right down into here. You see that scumbling on top of some of that green. See, it gives you a great look to some of those back snow and stuff like that. And we'll bring back out some of this snow back out again down that little. You can start to create the, or bring out and enhance the little valleys or snow and stuff coming along, coming down. Let's scumble this edge a little bit heavier here so that this tree line stays right up in front of that other mountain, and that'll be pretty good there, like that. Okay, again, I mean, all kinds of real pretty things that you can do, like right through here. Now I'll start thinking, okay, let's get some violet. I have a lot of yellow. Let's start thinking as an artist, putting the violets in, a nice tone violet, ultramarine blue, a little bit of your violet, a little bit of burnt sienna, some light. Let's get some light color. And being as an artist, we would come in and we would just go a little bit lighter. So that was about a value 7. Let's go up to almost an 8 to almost to a 9. A little lighter, a little bit of that violet in over here, and this is being the artistic part of it into the mountain. You may not see that in any of your photos and stuff, and basically because of a lot of details and stuff, but we put these in because we have the violet to the yellow to the warm to the cool, and those just look great when you start adding those in. So we'll add just a little bit of that, and then just very lightly back there because you don't want to get too dark. You don't want to destroy your atmosphere. But those violets, see pretty violet colors, lighten it up a little bit as it comes up here. Let it override and just touch the top of that light. Let it create that contrast right there with just the tip of that light. And you'll get some really pretty look to your mountains there. It's more painterly, more artistic than trying to copy the mountain exactly pure, because you got that nice violet yellow contrast there, and I like that. So I'm going to put a bit of that. You can create the V shape with your calligraphy if you want to put that mountain in, but remember the V shape here, if it's going to be the calligraphy, if you're going to do that, you remember this angle going this way is cool, this angle going this way is warm. So the cool would be here, right like that, and then I'd warm up back to my warm snow, and I drop the warm snow down this side here. And if you can take that right down that side, break this in just a bit into there, right? And then if you picked up this angle anywhere, like we could take a little darker violet, hit and drop some of that right in there, in and around those greens, and you can create an angle of a mountain coming down that way. So let's warm and lighten this just a bit. That's a good line. That's a nice warm structure there coming down right like that. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to break up this straight line that's right there. Just push a little bit of an angle into it. Take some of that out. Just tap it there. See? Breaks up the power of that straight line. So I kind of look for those just a bit. Maybe a lighter violet right here to kiss the surface of that, to break up that shadow violet just a bit right there. That's pretty good. Now we can let's get back to some of our ultramarine blue and white. We'll go very light here, up to 9.25, somewhere around there, very light, almost white here. And let's push that. It could have just a touch of phthalo. I'm a really big fan of phthalo on the horizon line. If that violet doesn't bother you, that's more natural. But something about having a little bit of that brightness to it, of that phthalo, just works for me. And I'm just going to clean up a bit along my horizon line right there, right up against the edge of my, not clean up as much, drag some over the edge of that mountain just a bit, and that helps that recede back there. I have a little spot right in here I want to kind of fill in just a bit, and I want to recede that back edge back here just a bit. A little bit atmospheric back there. Some of it fades away. Some light color, some streaks. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to add those clouds yet. So I haven't quite decided that, but I like a little bit of that. Let's go even up above the upper skyline here and just add some of that streaks. Sometimes I like to paint mountains, and I paint some of the clouds right over the edge of the mountains, and I like that. But I like the atmospherics that a little bit of streaking gives you there. Okay, let's take just a bit of those violets and blues and just kick them down this side here. That's good. A little bit down where we're going to have some of those trees and stuff. So if anything in here, if it starts grabbing too much of your attention, then what we need to do is, of course, soften it out. We can do that. Let's go in. Let's push some of this to the side here for a minute. Scrape some of it off with my little scraper here. I showed you guys this earlier. Here. Get it. Why I like the glass, boy. You know, I like the glass. Here. Painting underneath the glass. So I'll take that off. And gives me a nice fresh look. Let's go in and let's put in some spark of those trees here. I mean, you could see the Indian yellow is just like almost there. Indian yellow, a little burnt sienna. Boy, that is like almost them here. We'll create some vertical movements here. Try to get rid of a little bit of those holidays. I have a few holidays, light areas of the board. Colors coming through, but and we're going to need to, as I start to develop the light and shadow of these, going to need to start making small. Don't take long strokes. These trees are really small. Altogether, it looks like a big area here, but they're really quite small. See, so your movement, your calligraphy needs to be pretty small. So let's take a little burnt sienna, a little burnt umber, so it's not quite so light. I like this one shadow that's going to come up this hillside right here. And we'll get small with our movements here. And I'm just using the corner of this fusion brush. That's what I like to paint with, the corners of them. You know, there's a lot of really great landscape painters today. They say use as large a brush as possible. And I truly believe that for what you're doing, and use corners and edges of it. That gives you, you know, a better look, and it keeps you from the disastrous repetitive strokes that can get all of us and destroy your landscapes pretty quickly. Let's put some of that. There's a nice little dark right up there. I'm just going to read a few of them. I'm not going to try to. I'm just going to capture the feeling of it, reading a few of it, not try to capture it, because I've changed the trees even a little bit more from the photo here. So I'll just capture a few of those movements, darks, but I like that sienna there, that burnt sienna, so I need just a bit more of that in a few areas here. Move those colors around. There, and that works pretty good. You can do it with a smaller brush and stuff, but again, and of course, if I was truly plein air out there, man, I'd probably have my big brush out there just right on the corner, you know, using that. Let's get a little white into that Indian yellow, a touch of that Hansa. Key word there is touch. I want to model it with some of the other colors here. I don't want to go too light with this, and matter of fact, I want to hold it down just a bit more. And I want to fracture this just a bit here. You could use a bristle. A bristle would work as well. But I tend to, like when I go out, or when I am doing any kind of real quick landscapes and stuff, I tend to, you know, it's to use as few tools as possible. I don't like to change too much tools because I'm just looking for color, movement, calligraphy more than anything else. You know, in the studio, we do all the final work. But you do make some nice paintings here with just capturing some of these. But we want to keep your motion small. Encroach on your brush here a bit. Keep your motion small here so that you give the feeling of smaller trees. This isn't, you're not making big trees. You're making smaller little trees here. So small little movements. And we can adjust it, and you know, depending on the time, you would come back with your you know, lighter colors, darker colors, and repeat them several times to get all the depth and interest in it. Because see, if I come back, let's just model up a little Indian yellow and the burnt sienna, just a touch of these, and I come back through again, I create that other little value here, and you try to quickly here establish another little movement value through, see, and that just adds a little bit more color and into those. And so break up some of this heavier dark there with some of this medium value burnt sienna Indian yellow, and see, you create that extra little softness and stuff to those trees, and you capture them pretty quickly. That's the whole thing, is try to, and that's what artists have tried to do for years, is try to find quick techniques for capturing stuff. Let's put a little bit of this siennas and stuff down here, and let's take a bit of our green, even a bit of that Hansa and black. I love the Hansa and black for creating those pine colors, but even run it right into some of these colors, because then you'll get a good harmony between these two sets of trees, because they contain some of the same colors here. Of course, I'll have to get some more yellows into this, but we'll run a few of these up. We'll run just a few. There'll be some horizontal grasses and stuff, and I might put like a little plane of something in there. One of the things that bothers me about this one over here is the shoreline. There's no real shoreline. Does that make sense? There's no real shoreline over here. And here's one thing that I learned from a lot of the masters too. Yeah, okay, so that's really what's happening there. There is no shoreline. But your job as the artist is to create this place where you want someone to walk into, where someone feels that they can walk through. That's just like when I was painting the Colorado River, and I said I didn't like that one wall there because in the back, because it felt like your journey stopped. So we opened it up so that you could continue on. There's no place to walk here on this. You know, there's no place. So I'm going to create one that somebody might want to walk. If it was me, I'd be walking right along that shoreline. That's what I would be doing. That's what I do. I go out and walk that stuff, and so I like that. So I might take a little burnt sienna, a little yellow, some white here. Might take this model it up onto my brush, and just drag that right now, right along the edge of that shoreline, right like that, to create a place that I can go for a walk. And, you know, that opens it all up here for someone to walk. See, and I like it when that comes, the different colors kind of come off there a bit, there like that. And I can open it up a bit by, you know, taking some of this color here. Let's take some of this light yellow, a little green, and let's just create a little a little angle here, a little plane that is not full of trees. I mean, I love trees, don't get me wrong. I lived, you know, born and raised up in Oregon. I loved trees. Trees are everywhere. But I do love openness of some things too. So, you know, breaking this up a bit here, you're the artist. You're creating this place that you want somebody to have interest to go in for a walk or something, you know, to see that, to create the visual journey to it. And so you see how much more that opens up, just a bit more. And of course we'll atmospheric this back here a bit. How do you do it? Put a little blue, get a little bit of our blue and white. Let's just drag that right through. We'll make that plane right here a little bit more atmospheric. See how that recedes that? Just real quickly recedes that whole area. Boom, back it goes. You're sending it back. But the viewer already still has a good idea that that's a nice, maybe a nice little place to go back there, to walk, and they can continue on back there. And so take a look at it back through there on that one. Okay, so you're looking at that camera there. See, yeah, that goes back. It gives you a place to continue on. Now, I will take a bit of some shadowy, a little bit more darks through, drop those right down, undulate into some of that light pathway we just created, and that will set some of the shadows of the trees here right into some of those, gives you visually what's going to happen in the grasses. I mean, with the shadows of these guys here. Let's get a little bit of our yellow oxide and some tiny touch of black and a little bit of white, and we'll create just a few lights into these trees here. It might be a little bit wide there, but just a few of the lights into that. And I could undulate those colors a bit more, get a little Indian yellow, burnt sienna, a little burnt umber here. So take some of these down a little further so it's not like more of a line. They're kind of undulating a little bit. That adds a bit more interest. No matter what you see, you're the artist, and the artist needs to change some of that. Let's take some of this Indian yellow, burnt sienna, bit of that burnt umber. Don't mix it up real well. Let's go reach right up through here and drag just a bit of that down here and there through in a few places to create that reflection. Maybe a little heavier right here. There we go. And maybe just a little bit of a burnt sienna. I love the burnt sienna when it goes into the waters. This makes a lovely reflection, reflecting color. Let's get that cool, dark. Let's get that burnt sienna and blue, the ultramarine blue here. A little bit of violet into that. And let's get that nice core dark right up over here on this side and drag it through just a bit. Up and down motions of it here, so because you're into the reflections. So up and down. You can do a few side to sides to soften something here. There will be kind of a side to side dark right in there, something like that. Okay, and yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's take a ultramarine blue, a little bit of the light here, and yeah, maybe just a touch of burnt sienna over here to the side. Let's take that right in here, drop that right in here along this edge, whisper that into that edge, the water there. Hopefully it's dry, so it just overrides the edge of that. And let's take some more of that burnt sienna and dark here, right along the edge. Just tap it a little bit through, create just a bit of that color right through there like that. Yeah, and then we'll take this light, we'll go a little lighter here. I've been telling myself this year I want to get more bold with some of my calligraphy, bolder with some of my strokes. So I want to be able to leave more strokes of color into, and so what I mean by that is I'll come in here now, we're going to put a light right up here. be a little bit more bold with my light and just leave the mark, the stroke mark of it. And that is not easy to do, but visually, boy, when you step back visually, that just looks amazing. But that's when you're up here painting close to it, that's not an easy thing to do, to leave that mark like that. And so I'll put a little bit of more of a medium tone right against that right there. And the thing is about whenever you're painting reflections, repainting water and everything, and I just love to paint water. I used to be my biggest fear. Now it's my most fun thing to paint. But I'll come in, you take out with the darks. The darks take out everything so well. So we'll adjust that blue there. I like that little bit of violet. I know it's supposed to be more burnt sienna and yellow, but boy, I do like that little bit of violet. But we can put a nice foil there of burnt sienna and yellow right there. That would help that. Okay, don't get too wrapped up in details here, Dave. So we'll capture a little bit of that, little bit of that look here, and leave some of that. There's a wind blowing across it, so some of this is coming out this way just a bit. Here, you might just lightly indicate a bit of a, we don't really have a lot of highlight shines or anything there, but that looks pretty good. A little bit along the shoreline there, a little bit of extra stuff in there. I like the stuff. I like movement back in there. That looks pretty good. And yeah, and then we could put snow or other little hills or something. I don't want to stop the visual journey back here, but just a little more color here, back in there. A little blue. That's too dark. Push that. Sometimes just, grabbing some stuff and pushing it around with your finger stuff is some of the greatest ways to, you add something back there, you add the movement back there without adding the defining lines back there, so people will see what it is they want to see. And that's the ultimate in all impressions, what impressionists and stuff do. So we might even add like the backside of a cooler edge of a mountain or something coming right here like that, and some of this just fades away back up in here. Some of that's all going to get covered up by the trees, but you can see that. But I like any kind of visual plane back here. Any kind of atmospheric visual plane will help the depth of your painting, the linear perspective of your painting. Now, as we come up through here, let's look at the big one up here. Can you see this? There would be and this is what an impressionist would do. We won't paint the little people there, but we're going to grab, do you kind of see this horizontal stroke in the light? You have to kind of really look, but there's like a horizontal stroke into the light. And then you can grab these angled lights there. So you can see this light plane coming here, and you can see this angled light plane here. That's the kind of stuff that I use the most into a photo. I look for that kind of stuff because it's the movement. It's the movement of the planes. So we're going to want to, because right now we have it very flat. Let's pull this back over again so you guys can see everything. So right now we have it so it's very flat. So let's go in, let's be brave, let's go in and add those right away. Let's take some burnt sienna, some yellow oxide, and let's take some white, maybe a little burnt umber into that. We're going to go lighter. That is up probably a value 8 here. So let's go up and get a little more burnt umber into that. Nice, and let's just keep it light because we can push it back a little bit. And let's be brave, and let's just grab some paint and drop it right along there like that. Now, look at how much movement that adds. I mean, we could do that with the scraper too. We need that much movement if we wanted to. We'll leave that little fracturing there right along the shoreline because that's interest, see? That's why I like these little fusions. I like how they when I fill them up and I push them, how they fracture that paint. But let's get a little braver yet. Let's get just a little bit braver yet. And remember, it's only paint. You can manipulate it. Don't do it too many times. Let's leave that. Let's see if we can, and this is where I want to go. And look at what it does on that picture there. That's where I want to go, is get brave enough. I keep telling myself I need to use a heck of a lot more paint. And those of you that are my online students, you're hearing me say that all the time. And, you know, it's something that I want to do. It's not easy. It's something I've been working on for a while. Let's angle one, okay, right up this way. Boom. Let's get that angle in. We'll push out. Let's grab that angle right up there like that. That's good. That looks real good. And nice load of paint. So if you don't go too far, just enough to set that angle motion there, okay? Now, we'll tone this down just a bit more burn umber or so. There'll be a tiny little, slightly darker one right up over here along the water's edge. So we'll go ahead and push that in and just let that just kind of fracture against the edge of that water there. But I like that light, so let's work that light. That's that hill coming right there. We have to work some shadows and stuff like that. But that's the angle of that hill coming in there. And that works pretty well. Let's keep that angle right up. Actually, it's going to flatten out just a bit because we have some trees to put in. So let's keep it at about that angle there. And yeah, then we'll cool it down. Let's take some green, some red violet, some blue, some of our cooler colors here. Let's toss some yellow into that. A little bit of burnt sienna, but keep it mostly into the cools here. Let's work some of this cool in and out through here. Should just use my scraper and get it all done. But I like some of the modeling here. Now see, that's what I don't like. So here was on dry, okay? And then here it's mixing up. This is one reason why I left oils, because it's mixing up too much for me. I've totally lost the original tone that I like to work with. And so I got to let that dry up so I can get the visual power to my color that I like to work with right here. You know, I'm a tone painter. I like to mix and get the colors and the tones, and that's one reason why I stopped using oils years and years ago, because they blended too much for me. There's a lot of people that like it and can control it. I like the acrylics. I like putting the tone on and adjusting the tone to what it is that I need, what I want to do. I'm just going to lighten this up and break this area up just a bit. And see, I'll let that dry for just a second. Let it start to tack up. And then just run some other color right over it and not blend it. So you see that original tone underneath there. That's why I like these. And so I create the tone, the movement of it. You know, that's what I like more than anything else. I'm going to take a bit of this light. I mean, you could do, if I was going to take this one into the studio, which you never know, I might turn something like this into a studio painting, make it bigger. You might come in here, put some rocks along the edges and more visually, more stuff to look at and everything, so. But I do like that addition of that shoreline there. We now have a place to walk. We can walk along the shoreline here. A little place to walk. So let's take some of this light back up here. We'll just grab some of the front of it. See, now I got this nice tones. We can even push up and down to create the first part of those grasses, those looks of those grasses there. But see, now I got that tone in there. And let's take a bit of this other tone in there, break that up just a bit so we get some of that shadow We're going to want some more of that shadow. Mix the tone again so it's slightly different. I'm always mixing. Here, let's just drag that over here. Break that where it ran together here. So I much rather, when I paint, I much rather paint in fracturing edges than anything else. So now you see that, you know, you get that nice fracturing of those edges and stuff, and it gives a lot of interest. You step back, and it gets a lot of interest to your painting. It immediately died when I hit wet paint into wet paint. It went to a real gray color, didn't it? So instead of having the warm, cooled, immediately they mixed together and made it gray. Wasn't such a great thing. Let's take some of our cool, and let's take some green, some burnt sienna, toss in a little bit of red, violet, and blue, ultramarine blue. Here, maybe even a little burnt sienna, but we want to keep it on the cool side here. And we're going to come right down now. See in the photo that creates a tangent line stopping the trees right there at that, so it gets a little bit bad. So I'm going to come over right about in here. And we're just going to create some movement. I want to, you know, you could leave a few little holidays for like the lake and stuff to show through and break some of these edges out. So then, you know, if you break some of these edges out, the viewer definitely sees these as pine trees. In the photo, it's not easy. And let's just create some up and down movement here. Some nice verticals that kind of seal off this one edge of the painting over here. And we'll go up a little higher and lower, and a few little horizontal touches in there. Puts a few touches of the horizontals in there and the verticals to just give the impression. We're just painting the impression of it here, like that. Okay, now that's a lot of detail on a little tree out there to the edge. You know, there's a lot of artists that would say don't do that, because that actually destroys, believe it or not, it actually destroys your depth. You would do more of a block. You would come in and push those together. Let's do it more this way, more as a block rather than leaving those individual points. And you're doing that for depth more than anything else. Just like, you know, pushing back the edges of the trees and scumbling in them and stuff like that. So, you know, you could actually have too much, you know, with the quality of brushes and stuff that you have, you could actually have too much. So it's better sometimes to do it as a block, a little bit more of a solid color than it is to get too many fractured edges there. That's up to you. You can call that. I'm just going to point that out. The, you know, painting the other trees here, the ones, you know, there's a lot where I would, you know, a lot of times I would just go grab like my little, this is a long-handled fusion, bristle filbert, and I like those. Let's start out with a lighter color, yellows here. Maybe just a bit of umber into that here. And let's just kind of push in where we want to go. We want this first one, and we want to go, I'm going to go up a little higher with it. I'm going to come right about here, and we'll pull down here with that one right there. And we'll just kind of drag that down just a bit there. And that's too wide, because this is a really, really old bristle. That's too wide there. I'm not going to worry about it a second. I'll take it down. I'll show you. And then we might come in right here so they don't line up, maybe a bit shorter. Let's drop that one in down there. Now to fix that, I'm just going to go ahead and fix it now. You do have to make sure that it is kind of dried up a bit, but just take a little bit of your sky. And boy, you know, when I started learning that, hey, you know, the masters even did this. You come back and you paint into it again. Put back sky holes, take out, resize stuff. You know, so I'll take some things down in size. Right with my sky, boy, that gave me such a freedom to learn that they did that as well. Sometimes break it up a bit and drag it around, but you can certainly thin it all out and do all kinds of stuff and paint out. And now your job is just to emulate, the feeling of the tree here. And you can do it many different ways, but what you don't want to do is do it repetitively. In other words, repeat some of the same things. So I will start to switch and hold my brush a little different here. And, pull some out. Use your finger a little bit. Granulate some. Pull out. But just don't create the same movement back and forth. There's a little thicker movement up onto this one. So we'll give a little thicker and then we'll thin it out. And, there's one wildlife painter, Carl Rungius. I think he is the what we call the father of wildlife painting, and he does the most magnificent trees I've ever seen. And he was purely a plein air painter out there, and he captures all the shapes of the high mountain pines and everything exactly the way they should be, and. We tend to be, or myself, I tend to get symmetrical sometimes and everything, and he has just such a way with color. Now I'm going to take a little burnt sienna. This will be our shadowy side. That's a little dark, so I'm going to put I'll put the Indian yellow in it instead of the others, instead of like yellow oxide, because the Indian yellow is more transparent. This will give me actually a better shadow. A little bit more transparent, translucent here, and give the feeling of the shadow there, like that. Now you can use more of the tips and drag the little bristle filbert out here, and or you could use any kind of brush you want to get the nice little edges. You can put some little branches and stuff like that. Just remember, you have a time limit. Your paint, we're supposed to be emulating painting plein air. We're not painting a studio painting. We're just getting the feel of the calligraphy and the color of what's going on here. So let's darken down some of our trunk as well. Just pull some of that through. There, like that. Okay. And then we'll move over to some of our lights. Let's go grab our Indian yellow and Hansa yellow here, right into some of these browns and stuff, and put some whites in it. I always tell myself, as I'm putting this on, so I don't get too light. I always tell myself 2 highlights, and it's a subconscious thing I always say, so it keeps me from getting too light right away. Because I want to come with more of a medium kind of tone. Take out especially through the center of the tree, the thickest part of the tree, take out just a few little things. A little bit of that out further out. But take out a few of the shadows here. And there we go. Just a little bit dragging over the edges there, and then we'll go lighter. And we'll go light. You go lighter, you go smaller, little touches of it and stuff here. Just kind of drag here. You could hold the brush flat and drag it. I've showed you that kind of stuff before. All different kinds of ways. You could use the little filbert. I've showed some of you the fun little filbert to use on it, and then but I'm just going to use this little bristle here just because it's different here, and I'll use it. I'm not a big advocate of just using it in one area like on these trees, so I'll put some of these marks and stuff here onto these trees, and then I'm going to come up and add. Now see that, so if it gets like I just played with that way too much, and so I'm just going to take some of that out with a little sky. This is what you would do. Just take some of that out, just a little bit here and there, a little bit of the sky color, just to lighten that up, loosen that up a bit. And I lost just a bit of my shadow, so I'll go back and put it in. One reason why I like painting this way is, you know, when I studied the masters, they had layering techniques, and layering techniques with certain pigments and stuff, and I painted that way for years. And I do like this, where you just paint what it needs. You just paint the tree with what it needs. I like the alla prima feeling of it. Let's take some of these yellows, nice and a little bit dry, and just drag these down. Use the edge of that brush there. Drag those down. Here, create that lifting motion. Now, if I was in the studio, I'd be doing this, you know, 6, 8, 10 times in a lot of different ways. Let's just grab some of this and drag some of this around. A little bit of bristle work is good, since we have it on those trees, and we'll use that for, you know, forward interesting area. Here, you know, I got rid of a little bit too much shadow, I think, down low over here. So let's just add a bit of that back. Right back there. That gives a little more volume to that. Here. There we go. Definitely gives you that light shadow edge of it, which sometimes is what you need. So you definitely see where that light is coming down. See there? Could have more work on there, but we don't have that much time. So I do love doing big studio paintings, and I always have one in the studio on the easel. I have one right back over there right now, and big Western that I'm working on. Those of you on Facebook, you can go see it. I posted on my personal account, first step blocking in of that one big painting I'm working on over there. It'll be a new studio painting. The studio painting is ones that I keep here. It's like that Peter Mark Munstad, that one that I showed you early on when we started out. That one. I originally did that one, and I had one of my clients, or my collectors, offer me $5,000 for it. And it took me 2 days to paint that painting. And they offered me $5,000 for it, and I thought, oh, wow, that's pretty good. I probably should do that. But and in the end, I ended up keeping it because it is a piece that worked for me. It's a piece that showed me, that I was studying, and I needed to keep that in my collection for my own personal studies. So some paintings you just keep, you end up keeping. I'm going to put a little bit of this. This is a little Indian yellow, a little yellow oxide, and a little bit of my umbers here. I like those colors. I like to get those. But we got to get this a little cooler too in some of this area. But see, it gets this nice bands of these colors. Now, you can grab your, your big, scraper and put some of that on there. I even had this one, that I showed you, and that would be a nice one to, you could scrape something along there. As long as everything's dry there, and you keep this, don't mix it up, don't over mix it, and model in some of your darks in here like this. And as long as you keep the pressure there kind of light, you get this beautiful granulation to it and this heavy use of color. That's what keeps it pretty here like that, see? You get a nice look to that, and you grab some of that nice heavy color. Yeah, let's grab that, and let's lighten this. That all works there. Let's just lighten this up a bit more. Here, drag right across that one more time there, a little more light right in there. See, that's the kind of stuff that you could work on, or if you had time, studio time, you work on this and refine these back. See, you get another little value, another little scraping of a tone back in there, and it really helps. But I really want to try to leave that one slight. Let's go a little bit more yellow, slightly lighter yellow right here, and leave that nice powerful stroke. I'm going to tell myself this is what my goal is as an artist this year, is to do that, to leave that. See, that just adds quite a bit there. And let's put that angle right back up here. Restate that again. Right there, leave that little bit of fracturing as it comes into those shadows there. Some of those shadows and those lights that just, up close it looks bad, but up close it doesn't look so great. But boy, in the, here when you look at it, the monitor, it's quite a bit better. Now, see, there's fun areas here too that, the artist, if this was a studio painting, you would look at to get a lot of depth. And let me show you one. The natural tendency is to let this die here. There's a little bit of the peeking out of the light right through there. And if you bring that out, what you do is you separate those back trees from this front tree here, like this. Stop right there at that trunk. And it brings out the trunk, and it brings out a little bit more depth into the painting here as well. Those are great areas. These are things that the masters planned for into their paintings and stuff, that they would have those kinds of areas that that would work. Let's drag just a bit of that light edge, little rough right over here. And what I'm thinking about is this losing the edge, or losing my edge interest of a found edge, losing it all the way back here to a lost edge. So where you have a crystal clear edge and then you're losing the edge, back to there. But see, that really helps. And you could, if I define that that trunk of that tree just a little bit more with some dark here, just the edge of that, just a bit more, it advances it just a touch more here. Yeah, and that works. And all fun things. These are all, and then you would manipulate a little more cool through here. You might even take some of your real cool blues through and set them back to there. Now it's kind of like, how much you've got a lot of visual contrast as you build this whole area up here. And I'd work it a little bit more. I like some of the undulations of the shadows, the lights and darks right out through here. That might be something that you do more in the studio, as opposed to working at it under your first. I like to consider these like color setups, practice boards. I call them thumbnails, thumbnail paintings of what a studio painting might be. To me, the thumbnail's the most important. That's where you're setting some of your techniques and what's all going to happen. But how much you're going to do, and this is all going to be up to you. I mean, you could work this a little bit more. I could take, there's all kinds of fun brushes. You've seen all of them. This is my favorite brush when I go painting the ships and stuff like that, and I love to do small grasses with that, because it just does nice grasses and points, especially after you have to have all your shadows and stuff done before you do this, because it's going to sit up over the shadow. And but you can do like little grasses like that pretty easy. And this was just a big, those of you who've seen that showed how I did it. This was a big, huge round. And I don't think I have an extra one here. No, I don't. Big round, and I took it out there and hammered it flat and then manipulated the hairs and did my own thing with it. But you have to be, before you go use this one, you have to have kind of your shadows where you are, because you'll override your shadows. Break the edges a bit of some of those. That's what grasses do. Here, just add a few little marks of those there. That works pretty well. Boy, I'm almost out of white here. Add a few little light touches of those. try not to have repetitive strokes. So I'm always kind of turning and rolling it. People do this with a fan brush, other kinds. There's lots of things. There's lots of artists out there doing it all kinds of ways. You definitely don't go do those back there, though. Don't go back there and start working on those particular colors, and might get yourself into trouble. I'm going to get out just a little more white and take just another minute here to just work on that. This is my big, gigantic container of white. This is, I decided I'm tired of this always squeezing little tubes, so I put it in this gigantic quart container of it here. And because I go through so much. Now see, I'm about halfway through that. This was full about a week and a half ago. This was full. I filled it up completely. That's because I use a lot. I paint a lot. Paint a lot with it. Now let's go back in and let's just look at our the interest of our mountains. We could have a little bit more into our mountains. You could put some nice little clouds into the sky, whisper in some clouds into the sky. I'm going to take a little bit of my white here and just redirect. Here's some of this down. Might leave a little texture in that too, but just to break up that could have just a little more interest into that through here. Just some white. I'm not doing it really super opaque, so if I do, I have to add that little yellow orange to it here. We can add just a touch of that as I go back here. How much more are you going to do on your mountains? That's your call here, but you can fracture those up and you can get a pretty nice little look back there with your mountains. How much you want to put back there? How much more, do you want to take some of your burnt umber and that Hansa yellow is really nice too here. Little blue, little reds, any of that in here. Just get that. I like that burnt umber and Hansa. Then a little blue into that here. Dirty that down, dirty blue-gray, and it's going to look really light here, but it'll look dark back here, and add some other little motions to these, other little kind of like shadow lines and stuff like that. I don't do that as much as in a quick plein air painting as I do in the studio painting, but a little bit of that here and there. Get rid of some of that. But how much more detail do you want to bring up into your trees? I like this kind of stuff going on. How much more do you want to have into your trees? Do you want to bring the peaks of the mountains out a little bit more? You can certainly do that. Always watch. What's your story? The story is the journey, and we have a nice journey basically because of the contrast here, and that line, that shoreline going back through there. That works pretty well, I think, here. But, you could increase the contrast and stuff into your mountains a bit. A little bit more dark. Not like right there, Dave. That's not correct. And you could take, like I've showed you before in reverse, you could take some of those violets and stuff, and that's a beautiful artistic thing to do. The artist would be the harmony of it. I mean, you would be looking at taking some of those violets right back up into the front, dragging it through. Look at what a little bit of that does into some of these shadows, the cools, up into the shadow side of your trees. That violet is really pretty, see? So that's the harmony part of the painting, and you should always start to think of the harmony as well. A little bit of that, and you'll see different artists use the harmony part of it differently. But you could add little touches of that, start to scumble some of that around through there. And so instead of being bands of color, that violet and stuff starts harmonizing everything and bringing things together here into the painting. And it does good things see how it's just kinds of, just love English sometimes. It kind of pulls everything together here, and but how much you put up there, again, that's up to you. but it's harmony. And so you start thinking of harmony and tying these mountains right into the rest of your painting, pulling everything together. Let's increase the plane back there just a bit. Here, that plane look back there. And see, that's a good atmospheric color right back there. Just touch that all through. See, and it just creates that beautiful depth or atmosphere back there. And you can bring that tree back out a little bit more. But see, the violets are, here's one of the things I do there towards the end. I just love that. Let's put a little bit into the water. It's a real light little violet touching through, and just little bits of it. And just here and there on the sides. A few verticals, a few horizontals, a few little touches. And that works out really well. But do you want to have any kind of clouds? Do you want to just put a wispy of a cloud up there? You know, let's take a little light in this violet. Do you want a wispy idea of a cloud just to come back through there? Just to take up a little bit of this space. Just imagine some high cirrus type clouds there. You know, not a don't paint any real big one here. Let's just get a little wispy. Carry some of that through. Now, if you're thinking clouds and you're thinking light, which you should be, if you're going to whisper this stuff through here, just whisper, and it's dry. See how you still make nice clouds there? Just try work a heavier light to the right side here because that's where the sun is. And just work that and soften it out, moving to the left. Let that violet in the sky come through as a real soft shadow. That's how you paint just real light, wispy kind of clouds back there. Let's put a little whisper of one back here and just let it kind of diminish down here on this side. Leave a bit more of the light. A little dirty green in your finger looks great into the cloud there too. And I used to always worry about all that kind of stuff, and then I started realizing, hey, it's just all harmony. It all works. It all works. So, yeah. See, just a simple. Now you step back and look at it from there. Just a simple little. Like I would probably add a bit more yellow oxide, touch of burnt sienna, a little bit of Hansa here, and a little bit more light. Maybe a brighter right out through here. And let's bring the burnt sienna and a bit of our blue here off to this side just a bit. And don't get too much more than that. That doesn't need, it's kind of a fun little thing. So, you know, I might just one last little thing here, and then we're at our hour and a half. Pretty good. Got it. Okay, I'm going to take a little green, little burnt sienna right through here. Let's just streak through this just a bit. Right up here, that dark, just to diminish that dark a little bit, so my eye travels. And why I'm doing that is so my eye, I'm looking at this. How much does my eye hold there to how much does it travel? So I want my eye to travel. So if I have any darks that are just like too dark, I need to soften them out just a bit so my eye travels a bit more. And so we'll take just an ever so softer, a little bit of siennas kind of things here. And just pull through a bit. And remember, they will dry down. Sometimes you think you did them and then they dry down. So I tend to put them on in the wet where they show up a little bit more because I know they dry down and they'll darken down. And that's just a thing that you have to figure out for in yourself and how much you paint, just how light things need to be because they do soften down. So that picks up that reflection a little bit more. And a little bit more of the movement, and that's probably all I'd want to do. Maybe tap and then you just stop because if you're going to do this much work on it, go to a bigger painting where you can get a little more bang in it. put a little bit of shadow right along that edge right in there, up into those trees there. That just goes better with that shadow there. It pulls your eye. And see, I try to pull your eye through contrast and everything moving this way as well here. So you can see shadows are really important. See those clouds drive down to just a little whisper of them back there, just enough to break up the sky. But a lot of artists would leave the bright blue sky. All right, so there you have it. You know how much you want to do, how much more you want to do, but I do like this little fracturing that you get back through there. That just, you know, and for me it was, you know, it was difficult for me because, you know, I came from being a perfectionist, stroke work and control, brush control, and then to sit there and put that on and leave these edges just fracturing here and say, you know, to me it was difficult. It was hard to do, and I always found now that the faster I do it, the less stiff they look. And to you as the artist, they will never look completely natural. Okay, that's because we referencing a photo or something like that, but they'll never look completely natural. But to some other viewer looking at it for the very first time, they're going to look magnificent. So you've got to learn. You know, like I was saying last time, you got to learn to let a few things go and just accept it, because other people aren't going to see what it is that you're seeing. Okay, so you know, if I wanted to be absolutely precise about this and increase some more of the contrast and stuff, I would probably put, see, there's a nice sun, you know, just a nice shadow that comes across through there. You know, you might glaze on some shadows and stuff onto your mountains to set them back, push them back a little bit more. You know, good Glazing Colors one I'm using right now on my big painting over there is the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue. I love that, and I thin that down quite a bit, and with quite a bit of water, and so I use it really, really thin, and it becomes a glazing color. And this is one reason why we like acrylics, right? We can do this right away. We don't have to wait any time for this to dry. But you can drop in a shadow back behind something, or drop this shadow in on the low side over here, bringing these together over that. And that gives a little bit more to your mountain here, like that. You could use a type of glazing thing. I never let the dark sit there when I glaze something like that. I never let that stand all by itself. So I usually will end up taking like a bit of the light. Here was the violet here, just a bit of the light, and I never believe in letting the glaze sit completely unless you're doing atmosphere. Letting the glaze sit completely up on top. So I usually put one of the colors up on top of the glaze to help. And what we do is we call that sink it. Sink the glaze into the actual painting here with a little bit of your lights. And so, but you can see that shadow just adds a lot to that particular part of the painting here. And I might bring out a bit more of the light right over here, right in here in the mountain. And you got to stop, Dave, because we're not painting a masterpiece here, but we got some great techniques for you guys to look at and give it a try here, right? Some great fun things. That's kind of a nice little one there as well. A nice little light. Bring this light down and stop, Dave. Here, let's stop that. You could keep painting on that forever. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. It's a fun little technique to try to lay in and set that all in there. Watch your light source and have a good time, okay? And I'll see you on next week's. We'll find another fun one. Maybe create it, maybe go find something. We'll find another fun one. All right? Okay, I'll see you next week.